One of the many functions of the Fantom-G is its sampling capability. And with the Fantom-G, you can sample audio with the Fantom-G, or you can import audio into the Fantom-G, and you can use the Fantom-G's keyboard to trigger samples, or the Fantom-G's dynamic pads to also trigger samples. One of the things you can also do is you can assign samples across the Fantom-G's keyboard or on the dynamic pads, and you can trigger those samples using an external device such as a MIDI controller or, let's say, an arranging keyboard. And that's what I'll show you how to do in this video. To begin, what you're going to do is you're going to create something that's called a sample set. Here's how to go about assigning samples to the pads and to the keyboard on a Fantom, and then being able to trigger those samples from an external device, like an arranger keyboard or another keyboard. So, first of all, I'm going to go to my sample list and scroll through my samples. As you can see, I've got a lot of samples here in my Fantom. So I've got that sample. So let's just use those three samples as an example of how to go about building up a sample set. So I'll go back to single mode, and I'm going to change where it says part group. I'm going to change that to, make sure that's on internal. Go to type, and where it normally defaults to patch, I'm going to change it to sample. And then using the dial, I'm going to go to an empty sample set. And then I'm going to press F7, patch edit. And here's the edit screen for the sample set. So by default, if I press B3 on the keyboard right here, it defaults to the very first sample that's in the sample list. Well, I want to start with sample 150. So if I want, I can press enter, and here's my sample list. It opens up, and I'll select the first sample, press F8 select, and now that sample is now assigned to the Fantom's keyboard. And if I want the sample to tempo sync, I can turn the tempo sync switch on. So now the sample will time stretch in real time. And now we're ready to assign our second sample. So I'll press the next key on the keyboard, which is C4, and go to my list and choose my next sample. So now we have on B3 this sample for this sample. And next, I'll hit my next key on my keyboard, in this case C#4. Make sure my cursor is where it says sample number, press enter, and go to my next sample. Go. And again, I can make sure that tempo sync is turned on. And of course, you can trigger multiple samples at the same time. Alright, now I can continue doing that with up to 16 samples. So let's go ahead and let's write that to the Fantom's memory. So name this with my initials. Also trigger my sample set from another keyboard, from a MIDI controller, an arranger keyboard. In this case, I'm using a V-Synth. So what I need to make sure is I've got MIDI out from my keyboard connected to the MIDI in of the Fantom, and that my keyboard is set to transmit on a specific MIDI channel here to my Fantom. In this case, because I'm in single mode, the sample set is being triggered on MIDI channel 1. But keep in mind, I can assign the sample set, either in live mode or studio mode, to be triggered by any MIDI channel that I want. So if I go to my keyboard, check it out. So I can trigger them here or here.